But again, you know, I spoke about this yesterday, the new one. So there's a subset of people that they don't go along with Jesus or Christianity, and they seem to be the strongest people on the planet. And they turned around and showed you that their lives matter more than anybody else's who's part of this conversation. Because the people who are so protected that you can't even mention their name, you know what I'm saying? They're showing you at law whose life matters the most at law. And what does that law derive from? That law derives from the law that was established in this book, right? So if this book contains that much power, once again, how are we throwing out the baby with the bathwater before we get from it what we need, you know? And with that, I'll yield greetings to Rashada. Peace, love, and light.
Peace, goddess.
Love and light. Peace, love, and light.
Yes, yes. So we ask you to do what you do naturally, and I'm gonna fall back.
Give thanks. Give thanks. We are going to open up this space. Mineral Ministries. Giving thanks to everyone who is here in the presence of this greatness. May we open up our hearts and give thanks for the beloved Pope Pablo and Chief Angel, and just for your courage to show up today. May your heart be open, and may you receive the message that you need to receive. Let's go on a journey and connect with the breath. Let's drop into our heart space out of the mind so that we can be in a space to receive. So take a nice deep inhale here, in through the nose, expanding the lungs. Pause the breath. And exhale. Another deep inhale here. Pause the breath. See yourself along with this space covered in the divine white luminescent shield of protection, calling forth all of our angels and ancestors and guides. Slowly release the breath and continue to breathe here. Another deep, expansive breath, expanding the lungs. Pause the breath. And release. Bringing the navel to the spine, completely breathing out all of the air. As we call forth our ancestors from every direction, from every realm that love us and guide us, may they clear the path. We call upon our ascended masters. We give thanks and praise to the Almighty Creator. May this space be protected, and may the medicine that must come through clearly and be clearly received. This space is open. Give thanks.
It's love and light. Woo, I really needed that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Was that whole in on the inhale, and then you gotta call forth the committee. Yeah, it's intense. It should be, you know. Air is a great qualifier. Should I say, for that matter? It's a great qualifier. If you can prove yourself, deem yourself worthy, you know, that's what the journey entails. And that internal, you know, travel, that internal journey, because all of these journeys are internal. You know what I'm saying? That level of intensity of that internal journey is pretty much indicative of that internal journey that you're going to go on. You know, that path, you're going to have to hold your breath for prolonged periods of time moving through this journey. And it strengthens your resolve because you get closer to yourself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that internal communication, you always rushing through life. We have to learn how to slow down time. You know what I'm saying? You should not be rushing through life. You know, find the balance. Again, this is Libra season, and our challenge is to find the balance, you know, through the muck and the mire. You feel me? It's gonna be there for you if it's yours. You can take your time. Take your time back. Stop rushing through life. You already have us on false time. Our synchronization of timing should be, you know, us knowing our heartbeat. And that's how you tell time. And that's what you got to check in with. You should not be checking in with your clock and your watch. You should be checking in with your breath. You know? So let me compound this covering by going into this prayer, Psalms 144, and calling forth a compounding of covering, cosmic covering, so we can see that white light bubble around us.
Put
So
that body up on.
right, while we travel through these realms, right? Praise be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle. He is my loving God and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield in whom I take refuge, who subdues people under me. Lord, what are human beings that you care for them? Mere mortals that you think of them. They are like a breath. Their days are like a fleeting shadow. Part your heavens, Lord, and come down. Touch the mountains so that they may smoke. Send forth lightning and scatter the enemy. Shoot your arrows and rout them. Reach down your hand from on high. Deliver me and rescue me from the mighty waters, from the hands of foreigners, whose mouths are full of lies, whose right hands are deceitful. I will sing a new song to you, my God. On the 10-string harp, I will make music to you, to the one who gives victories to kings, who delivers his servant David from the deadly sword. Deliver me, rescue me from the hands of foreigners, whose mouths are full of lies, whose right hands are deceitful. Then our sons in their youth will be like well-nurtured plants, and our daughters will be like pillars carved to adorn the palace. Our barns will be filled with every kind of provision. Our sheep will increase by thousands, by tens of thousands in our fields. Our oxen will draw heavy loads. There will be no breaching of walls, no going into captivity, no cries of distress in our streets. Blessed is the people of whom this is true. Blessed is the people whose God is the Lord. Namaste. Yeah.
All due praise.
All due praise. And with that said,
let's balance it up, level up.
Yes, let us definitely get this underway. So the other day,
Over here right now too. Nice.
I came across scripture the other day, and this passage was powerful, and I wanted to share that, to create the foundation about where we're going to take this conversation. And that passage was saying how important it is, to know who you're trusting with, not only your protection, with your word, more so with your treasure, right? It was John 10:13, and they said, don't be so quick, right, to go and hire hands who at the first sight of the wolf, right? A hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. We have a real issue in community, in this community, in our lives, in our personal space, with trusting people with gold who have not even showed you what they could do with copper. And then we complain, right? Because somebody takes your treasure and they squander it. But you knew nothing about whether this person understood value. You knew nothing about how this person moves, right? You knew nothing about this person other than that person was available, right? So what we're going through a lot right now is because we're in so much need of quote unquote help and assistance. feel me? We're making decisions out of desperation and inequity and negativity, right? Like the people who are unqualified for the job be the ones that show up early. They show up every day. You know what I'm saying? They always find a way, right? Yes. So we're not taking the proper time to vet people for their qualifications. It's almost as if, you know, I used to
Letting
create
the fox
resumes online, and people are attempting to live through their resumes rather than the actual work that they put in with their hands. It's the same way that people are attempting to live off of their legend or, you know, their legacy or the words that, you know, oh, this person does such and such. That may have been the truth about the past, you know, but the present, you know, what that person has to offer presently, you don't know that until you know it. You know what I'm saying? So all that to say, it's like the invasion of the body snatchers out here, y'all. You have to be very clear with your level of discernment as to who you put in position of power, especially if it pertains to something that you have built with your hands that you value, right? And especially if it's your life. Because there are
Hey,
people.
bro, you know what? We had a conversation similar to this, me and you. The thing about a lot of times is that people get comfortable in their friendships, in their relationships, and a lot of things of that nature, right? So in that comfortability, they start to think in themselves like, well, you know, this is my homeboy or this is my people, they're gonna do it anyway. But they're forgetting why or how they got to that position that I really fuck with you like that. You see what I'm saying? So they're not, you have to reinforce that all the time. You can't become comfortable in that relationship or comfortable in that friendship. You got to keep reinforcing why you chose to be around me or I chose to be around you. You see what I'm saying? You got to keep reinforcing that.
Right.
They don't.
And I also heard a video the other day, and it was very, you know, it was very revealing. You know, the brother was like, you know, I don't like sheep. You know, sheep are a silly animal. You know what I'm saying? I prefer to be a goat. And he was identifying with the energy of the goat. And, you know, for someone who never really read the Bible from a level where you're looking for the esoteric aspects of it, the entire Bible is a book about a goat. It's centered around the goats, you know what I'm saying? More so than the sheep. You will want to identify with the narrative dealing with the goat than with the narrative dealing with the sheep. So we could look out in the world and see what the sheep look like. You know, you want to be a sheep. You know what I'm saying? But it's also a euphemism that they use in this book to compare the believers or the followers. They call them sheep. And they call the quote unquote leader of the sheep the shepherd, right? Because the shepherd is responsible for a large flock of animals, and he could utilize a level of sway, right? He can program a few of them who can program the rest of them, right? Hence the fact that, you know, we're speaking about groupthink, you know, how to control a mass population of people, you know. And we can see that online, how that works. It has its gifts and its curses. You feel me? But nonetheless, this is in scripture, this is the euphemisms or the analogies that they use. You know, so we'll go right into one of these scriptures, which is Matthew. If anybody's new to the program, the way that we interpret scripture, we align, you know, the day on the Christian calendar, the Gregorian calendar. Today is October 16, so that's 10/16. So we go to scripture and we find out what's the commonality of the vibration of the tone of 10/16 across these different books. So we'll start with Matthew 10/16, and that is, I am sending you out like sheep amongst wolves, right? Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. So he's the flock, right? To have a level of discernment, but he's also expressing to them to have a level of subterfuge in public amongst people who are perceived to be wolves. You have to know how to move in a nature that is not necessarily yours to get things that you want when you're moving amongst people who might not be as quote unquote as innocent or as righteous as you, right? You still got to move amongst them, especially when you are on assignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that takes you really knowing yourself, it takes you really knowing your environment, and it takes you really knowing the assignment, right? In order
Facts.
to be able to shapeshift, if you will, around people who don't have,
Mm-hmm.
who are, they fronting around you while you can't front around them. They're pretending like they have your best interests at heart, and they're wolves in sheep's clothing, or they're snakes in the grass. How many of them have you invested in? You know what I'm
You
saying?
already know. Facts.
So even back then, they was dealing with this, the double and the triple agent. The triple agent is the one who ultimately is working against himself because they don't even know the larger plan, right? So they're double agents, not even knowing that they're really triple agents because ultimately, in the long run, they worked against something that would ultimately have benefited them or their posterity down the road, right? And we could step back and see this in society today, right? We could see that the turncoats and what have you who took down leadership, their children and grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
same predicament as the people who they turncoated on leadership for. They're probably also not benefited from the shift in the tide that could have took place, but they jumped for some shekels of silver, you feel me, and did the filling of the colonizer and slit the throat of the organizer of the plan of the revolt. And then everybody's still on the plantation.
Mm-hmm.
Feel me? So we'll go to John 16, John 10. We'll go from Matthews to John and see commonality across scripture, right? Once again, we'll show you how they blend. So John 10:16, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there should be one flock and one shepherd. You feel me? So this passage is speaking about bringing, one group over to another group who you already have a level of connection with. These people know your voice, they know the mission, they know the assignment. I'm bringing another group over here, so we can have some alignment, so we can strengthen our fold. But what's going on now today is that you will have one flock who you have established, they got the mission, the assignment down packed. You bring another flock in and they destroy the entire internal fortitude of your flock because they're the ones that are disruptive to begin with. So you got 500 people over here bringing 500 and more. Now you left with 250, right? Because they have brought their as wolves and they have spread, all sort of disruption before you had an opportunity to unify the masses with your one voice. Because your one voice is what? Iterating the fact that you have one assignment or one, you got a vision that you need your quote unquote flock in tune with. So let's show you how this plays out in society today. Let's show you the inversion of this passage in society. Now society is dealing with, let's go to social media. Let's go to social media for the last 2 years dealing with C-19. Let's observe the censorship program with social media. Let's understand that all of that was about narrative. Let's understand the power and the importance of narrative. Let's understand that the people who have been attempting as best as they can to get you on their program, they do not want conflicting voices coming at you. That's where the censorship comes from. I want these hoes, right, only listening to me as their pimp. You can't go and talk to another pimp. You get your head smacked off. Why? Because it goes down to when you are programming or indoctrinating or transferring your mind into another contingency of quote unquote people, you can't have conflicting conversations taking place internally at the same time. So social media, rather than even wrestle with people who they say have different narratives to them, they're just right. They're propagating censorship programs outright altogether by saying we're going to shut your voice down. Case in point, the same thing is taking place in the population dealing with Kanye, right? There cannot be a divergent amount of conversations at the same time. These people are literally out here fighting for narratives. And if somebody has a different narrative than them, they want to block you out outright, right? They don't even want to debate. They don't want to have an argument. You feel me? They just want to say, look, you can't even talk like that on this platform to my hoes. Right? And then when you step out and you say, I have a voice that is a unique voice. I have a voice and a perspective that is different than the population or what the group think is going through. Then that happens to you. Then we go to Ecclesiastes 10:16. Then this becomes you. And if I hold my head high, you hunt me like a lion and display your awesome power against me. Right? So let's go back to what I was talking about, these people of Judah who you can't mention their name. Right? You can't even point a finger at them. They are so fragile and so protected, right? As a population who are waving their birthright in your face and say, well, I'm God's chosen. And I've been through some conflict that I haven't healed yet from. So you can't even talk to me. And if you have the nerve to telegraph to the rest of the world that you're about to talk about me, right? Let alone talk to me. If you're about to talk about me, I'm going to shut you down and show you my power. That's what we're looking at in real time. So once again, we can look at scripture and bring it up to date in real time and give it the clothes that it deserves. You feel me? So we can stand it upright and look at it for what it is. We can know and understand that these scriptures, that the book is open and the seal is broken and this stuff is taking place. Feel me? And we also know that this particular next scripture, we can look at society, we can look at our own lives, we can look at the narrative and the story that's playing out, and we can see the scripture and we can see the flip side of the scripture, right? So Proverbs, we'll go to Proverbs 10:16. In Proverbs 10:16 says, the labor of the righteous leads to life. The pain of the wicked brings punishment, right? So if we never knew what that scripture or that particular narrative meant, let's bring it up to date. And let's use real life examples, so we can better interpret and transliterate what words mean. The labor of the righteous leads to life, right? So, we all had that Nana who had to have 2 or 3 jobs. She was a single mother. You know what I'm saying? She didn't really get that much time, with the children.
You hear me?
She was making scraps. She was making scraps, and she probably was doing it for 30 years, cleaning rooms. scraps, and she probably was doing it for 30 years, cleaning rooms. And toilets.